Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing this morning? Excellent. Give me a quick sec to figure out the remote. There we go. All right, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit about infrastructure this morning because of the American Investment Act and other federal financing opportunities that are coming down the pipe. We wanted to make sure that TCC communities were really aware of what resources TCC has to offer, and then what we can do to get ready for some of the federal funds. And just to give you guys sort of a comparison, this is, in many ways a once in a lifetime opportunity. There's the Infrastructure Act that was pushed through and some of the coronavirus relief funds. This is really a generational amount of money. And our hope is that each and every one of our communities can be prepared and focused to identify what specific projects you all want to go after and then really capture it. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the panel and then we'll kind of kick things off. I'm Dave Messier with TCC's Rural Energy Program. We traditionally have done a lot of energy projects in your region, mostly focused on community scale work. And I've also gotten into broadband recently. And I wanted to introduce Thelma Nikolai from Hughes. Thelma, and can you talk a little bit about just kind of what your role is in Hughes? That mic should be on.
I'm Thelma Nikolai from Hughes. My native name is Tuusna and Hadadlikaga Lista. That means I live in Hughes. I'm from the Hadadlikaga tribe. Anyway, our community planning, we have a community plan and we really follow it through. We have projects that we prioritize.
Okay, just introduction. Thelma, can you talk, do you have a dual role with the tribe and the city?
Oh yes, I work for both the city and the tribe. I administer all the programs at the city and write grants for both city and tribe, and we work really good together.
Thanks, Thelma. And that's one of the reasons that we asked Hughes to come up here and Thelma to come up, is because as we look across the communities in the region that have had a lot of success working collaboratively, Hughes really kind of stands out. And Thelma's going to talk a little bit later on about some of the successes that Hughes has had in really prioritizing projects and then turning them into successfully implemented projects. And then Mitch, do you want to just do a quick intro about who you are and what program you run, and then we'll kind of pass through TCC staff?
Good morning, everyone. Mitch Schufelt here. I'm the TCC construction manager. I've been here for almost 11 years. My background here started off with the housing department, the weatherization, kind of rolled into the Bureau of Indian Affairs housing improvement program, and worked towards my general contractor's license to oversee construction for many of our villages. I am a tribal member from Fort Yukon, Alaska. And I'm just here to help anyone out that's looking for overall project managements for your construction coming up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Selena Sam. I am from Tanana and Alatna. I work here at TCC as the Planning and Development Manager. I've been at TCC for just over a year now. I was originally hired as the Community Planning Coordinator, but I just moved up as of yesterday. I helped tribes write their 5-year community plans.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Babcock. I'm the village bookkeeping manager. My department we do day-to-day bookkeeping for some tribes that we contract with. And then in addition to that, we're here to offer any support that tribes have with financial policy, procurement policies, if you're having QuickBooks issues, anything along those lines.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have at TCC, and more specifically, how we're hoping that tribes can utilize the resources at TCC to really kick off some of the infrastructure opportunities that are available. And I've got a map up on the screen. It's not for educational purposes. You guys obviously know what the region looks like. The point of this is just to stress how big our region is. And when I go to do presentations down in lower 48, I always try to stress we're roughly the size of the state of Texas with fewer miles of road than the state of Rhode Island. And that is just huge. And so we recognize at TCC that where you guys are, it's separate, I guess, from where most of the grant funding takes place and where some of the professional services are as far as engineers and construction firms, et cetera. Most of those folks are based in Fairbanks and Anchorage. And so TCC being local in Fairbanks, I think that's one of our big strengths, is that we can go down the street, we can run to the airport, we can get checks signed, we can kind of be your voice in the community if there's contractors you want to pair up with, if there's grant funders you want to pair up with, and just do whatever we can to help you guys be successful. But what I really wanted to stress, and we're going to have Wilmer Beatus come up, whether he wants to or not, and talk a little bit about this and how the community of Hughes has been working together, is just that one of the things we wanted to focus on is this idea of think, plan, act. And that, I think, is something that Hughes has done really well, and then some communities have been successful at. Think, plan, act. And that's important as some of this infrastructure funding comes out, because oftentimes we find folks look to TCC for 100% of the services that they need as far as implementing projects. And we are here to back up all of our tribes, but we cannot complete the project without your help. We need local guidance and local direction to make these projects a success. And more importantly, we need you guys to set priorities. And so when there is a funding opportunity and we see a community that's got a community plan, that has a building committee, let's say, that has all of their ducks in a row, it makes it so much easier to go after that chunk of funding and really successfully put in grant applications and get projects funded. And then on the other side, after projects are funded, we're here to help with project management to make sure that you guys are using the best contractors, the best vendors possible, and that these projects get implemented with as high a probability of success as possible. And so I've got a project that my program was able to help with in Hoosley up on the screen, the Hoosley Multi-Purpose Building. And one of my favorite parts about this project and many of the projects is that we partnered with a construction firm that was able to ensure almost 100% local hire on the construction of this building. And I was overviewing some of the payroll, the certified payroll, and the last names were real familiar on the payroll. It was Vents and Sams and Dementifs. And that's one of the things that we realize is a goal for all of our communities. And we also need to be cognizant that that is not necessarily a goal of some of the funding resources that we go after. So we can't necessarily select a contractor, just say, we want to work with these guys if there's federal funding involved. We need to go through a competitive selection process like we went through on this process and put out an RFP on the street, receive and evaluate bids as a community, and make sure that we're following federal procurement guidelines. And at the same time, work in what we know is a community's goal of having maximum local employment. And so I was really proud that we were able to do that on this specific project. And again, that's a focus of any project that we're involved with. But one of the things, and one of the reasons we ended up getting involved with this project in Hoosley was because we were doing a biomass project with the tribe. And I was speaking with the city manager, and she said, well, Dave, we've got, over $1 million for this project, and we really don't like the design, but I guess we've got to build it anyway. And we said, whoa, whoa, whoa. If you don't like the design, it's your money. Let's change the design. And that was one of the frustrating things, is that the city had kind of gone through this design process with a firm in town, and their interests in the community weren't really followed by the design firm. And so we were able to walk them through it with a team of smaller designers and get them a building that was more suited for the community and fit within their budget. And as you guys all know, if you've been part of any federal funding opportunity, right, most of those have caps. And then there's a constraint with regards to how much budget the community can bring in. And in construction speak, they always talk about the cost per dollar for cost per square foot for construction, right? So we knew, hey, if we've got about this many dollars, about $1.2 million, and we want a building that's 5,000 square feet, but it's going to cost $400 a square foot, we don't have enough money. So we worked and scaled the project back, tried to make it as simple as possible. And what we did in this instance to try to meet the community's goals of eventually getting a larger building and also meet the budgetary restrictions on the project was we designed in a wall on the south side that you guys were just looking at that could be taken out. So that building currently has a shed roof, and it's designed as about a 3,000 square foot building. But if other funding comes available in the future, there's structural steel beams right down the middle. And the community, if they have funding for it, can about double or more the size of the building, because the space is there and the design plan and the construction aspect of the building are there. And we were able to work within the community's budget constraints and the constraints of the funders. So those are just some examples on a community scale project of how we were able to work in the community's needs. And the challenge is really that sometimes a designer will come in and their goal, not all the time, but oftentimes, is to maximize profit, right? And so your goal might be a little bit different. You might not want what is on their shelf. And so that process to get a building that the community really wants to see in their village might take a little bit longer, and that's more time and resources on the engineering standpoint. So some key points for just general projects. Generally, cost sharing is always going to assist your community with getting a project constructed. The more skin you guys have in the game as a village, whether it's the city or the tribe, the easier it is to ask for additional funding from any partner that you're working with. So ICDBG grants, CDBG grants, any of the other opportunities from USDA that are out there. If there's a chunk of kind of unrestricted money that the tribe has access to, it's almost like, I hate to use a gambling analogy, but it's almost like you can take that money down to Vegas, put it on red, and double or triple or quadruple it if you structure it the right way to go after some of the funding opportunities, because funders like to see that the community's got skin in the game. Also, know your budget. That's the most important thing. And I think where some tribes get bound up is not starting with the budget constraint in mind and going down the road of ordering materials without the complete picture. And one of the reasons we've got Jen up here, and she's been an incredible asset for TCC, and I think for many of our communities, is the financial accounting aspect. It's kind of like, the term ship shape. If you go into someone's bedroom or office, let's say, and it's got every pencil's in the spot that it should be, every piece of paper is where it needs to be, you're going to think a little bit more highly of that individual, like they're a little bit more organized. And the same is true of financial accounting, because the funders have guidelines that they need to meet, and all your grants will have requirements that they need to meet. So keeping an accurate detail of how money was spent will help you make sure you've got enough money to complete the project, obviously, but then it'll also keep you in the good graces of the funder, and they'll be a lot more likely to fund you on the next project. Again, another big piece is finding the right design team. And what we found is there are some contractors or some designers that are a little easier for our tribes to work with, and some that are a little bit more challenging. As the former mayor of Kayakuk, who since passed away, told me when they were designing one of their buildings, he's like, man, those engineers came in and they just brought us fried chicken. And in the meeting, everybody was just focused on the fried chicken and nobody focused on the design. And so we've seen that happen where, again, the designers will come in and say, hey, this is what'll work for your community. And it's challenging because they've got all the letters behind their names and all the expertise. And so there's not really open communication. And so that's another role that I would say we play at TCC, is helping make sure that your tribe has a voice in the design process and making sure that you guys get the system, whether it's utility infrastructure or a building that you guys want to see. And then obviously getting construction cost estimates from the get-go, because too often what happens is we throw out a number for what a project will cost. And especially right now with changing shipping costs and changing construction costs, when the project goes to get funded, it might not be enough to really make the project a success. So making sure that we've got sufficient construction cost estimates before we go after the grant, and that there's contingency planning in there, is really important. I've got to throw in a plug for any new construction that's put in place, making sure that efficiency is focused on, whether it's renewable energy and solar or just really high efficiency building standards. And TCC back in 2013 passed some of the highest building efficiency standards in the state. And I'm really proud that some of our clinics are meeting that today. So R100 in the lid, R60 walls, and R50 floors, those are some of the tightest buildings being built in the state. And people have asked us, designers have come to us and said, why are our design standards so thick? Why are walls so thick? Why is our insulation requirements so thick when oil prices are so low? And that was 2014, 2015, 2016. Well, what we're seeing now is that oil prices have come up very drastically. And what we're concerned about is that's going to have an impact on all of your operating budgets and the ability to run these buildings long term. So if there's issues that come up and the heating system in a community building goes out, you've got thick walls, you kind of have more time to deal with those issues. If you've got thin walls, then it's a challenge and you need to respond immediately. Similarly, on the energy side of things, if you can design systems that use LED lights, that use high efficiency pumps, you're going to lower your long-term operating costs. And those are just a big win for everyone. Now I'll pass it over to Thelma to talk a little bit about some of the projects that Hughes has been involved with and some of the successes that Hughes is having. And Thelma, if you want to drag Wilmer up, it's your discretion.
Okay. Wilmer, Beatus, come up and help me.
And then guys, I should note, I apologize, but we're going to have a break at some point when someone waves to me and Senator Murkowski is going to call in. And then if you guys have questions as we move along, if folks could please write those down and save them to the end, we'd really appreciate it. Sorry about that, Thelma.
Okay. Once again, I just want to talk about the planning. We really pay attention to our community plan. We revise it every 5 years, and we have the projects listed that we completed, and then our goals and objectives after that. But we have meetings. We tried to have them every six months, but annually, and we just meet when we need to prioritize projects, and both the city and the village works together really good. Most of the council members are on the same board. And my position is the grant writer for the city and the tribe. And it's really challenging, but I like it because I learn different things every time. The environmental review is pretty intense, but it can be completed. And partnership, working together as a community is real important because that's where you get everybody's input. And about half the community participates when we have community meetings, which is really good, even kids. And we have a board up there, and they could put anything they want, want to build on the paper. And that's how we do our planning. There's resources, there's a lot of resources out there. You just have to look for funding sources, and it's hard work, but it's rewarding at the end. About 6 years ago, we had a low student count in our school, and we needed 10 students to stay open. So we held meetings at home and in Fairbanks for our tribal members. Housing was an issue. There was not enough housing. There was overcrowded homes where like a couple of generations would be living, So we decided we're gonna build houses, and COVID happened, and so we just built some COVID units and some new homes, and they're all occupied right now. And they're all happy, except for Wilmer. He's waiting for his phone to get in his house before he move in there. But anyway, we're gonna build 3 homes this summer, and we built 3 log cabins that the people cut their own logs. And that's really rewarding because they have to work hard for it.
Wilmer, go for it. And I wanted to, our slides got a little bit goofed up and changed around, but we really did kind of want to focus a little bit on the leadership aspect and just that idea of think, plan, act. And Wilmer and Hughes and I have been working together on a large solar project for the last few years. And a couple of times Wilmer's been unable to go down and do a presentation in Colorado. And so he's trusted me to do the presentation in his stead. And I always bring up the example just to kind of highlight what I think is phenomenal leadership in the community of when Wilmer had first got elected. And I found out about this because I was walking down the street and Wilmer's son, Archie, was sitting out at his front step. And sorry, I'm a little bit taller than Charlene. No offense to Charlene. There we go. Anyway, Archie's sitting there on his front step and we just start talking, and he's talking about how one of the first jobs that Archie didn't get hired for was a job that Wilmer led. And he said, Wilmer's son said, yeah, I was the only one in town to pass the drug test, and I was the only one that didn't get hired. And I said, how does that work? And he said, well, Dad didn't want to show favoritism because he was worried about his credibility. And to me, that just kind of underscores, quality leadership in a community. And I think that it's one of the reasons that leadership, that kind of putting the community first, that Hughes has been so successful in implementing projects and seeing them through to completion. And so I didn't mean to steal the microphone. I'll hand it back over to Wilmer to talk a little bit about some of Hughes' successes.
All right, thank you. Wilmer Beatis, first Chief of Hughes. I want to, first of all, thank David for all the work he's been helping us with on a lot of projects, not only the solar panel, but our elder youth facility and our power plant, our generators. He's did a lot of work for us. I just want to talk about some projects, kind of what we've been doing. And the reason we've been doing this, 2002, when I got on the council, we were down to 9 students, and we were just on the verge of our school closing. So ever since then, we've been trying to build our community. And thanks to Thelma and our staff that's at home, we did quite a few projects in the last 3 years. Like Dave mentioned, our solar panel project. That's an ongoing project. We finally got it done, and we'll get some data on it. We have 380 solar panels, about 150 kW. It's tied right into our grid at our power plant. So that is now going to be online. The sun will be out here, and I think they got them cleaned just the other day. So, on housing, we found out housing is really important. Like most tribes, they've been talking quite a bit about housing yesterday. And we, last year, 2 years ago, we started building 3 log homes. We all volunteered to cut logs. It started with just a couple of us. We went up to found a good logging area. And then the next day, there was about 6 or 7 more guys showed up, just volunteered. And we cut over 400 logs. And as you see on the picture, we milled them. So we built, we started building, and then COVID happened. So what we did was we said, well, we'll make these log homes, we'll use them as COVID housing. And then, like most other tribes, we had a bunch of money, deposited into our bank. So we ordered 3 more COVID housing packages about a week after we got the funding. So, and then we started 2 other IRHA homes. So we built 8 homes. We got all done with those. And we found out that it helped us. There's 2 families moved back home. Last fall, we started with 13 kids. Now we're up to 19. So it was good to have those families move back home. The infrastructure bill, there's going to be a lot of money coming out. It's like the Senator Mikowski was talking about. We have to be prepared for it. So what Hughes is doing is we are working on a road, a 2.5-mile road from our community to our cemetery. In the last 7 years, we had to wait about 3 weeks in the spring and the fall when during breakup and freeze up to bring our loved ones to the cemetery, because we can't get there. We don't have a road. The only access is by snow machine or river. So we're getting 100% design done. We had it surveyed. And then we'll apply for funding with the infrastructure from the infrastructure bill. About water and sewer, it's really important. And you know, some of our villages still don't have water and sewer. I brought it up last week at the sub-regional meeting. I think it's really, you know, we've been fortunate to have water and sewer, and these new houses we built, we had individual wells and individual septic systems put in. IRHA, we worked with them, had a contract with them to put in our septic system. We had a contractor from here that did wells. He brought his drill rig up there and put in 8 wells for us. So all the houses we built, they're complete with water and sewer. We are now working on a elder youth facility with our American Relief Plan funding. It's a $3.7 million project, and what it is, it's a new community hall. It is 80-foot long, 60-foot wide, and has 8 sides and a dome on top. And so we had work with I think 5 different engineering companies. We did that on our own. Thanks to Dave. Dave helped us. And we started looking for funding. We're using, we got a CDBG grant, thanks to Selma, for $850,000. And we just found out that we got a ICDBG grant for $1 million. So again, thanks to Selma and Dave. And we also hire a grant writer. I think he worked for Tanana before. His name is Jeff, and Julie probably knows him, but he's been writing grants for us, and he did our COVID funding HUD grant, and we got, I think, 900,000. So right now, like Selma mentioned, we're going to be building 3 more COVID housing. So with this elder youth facility, and we got a Department of Justice grant. So, and that was a couple of years ago built a safe house. So we're also working on that. We're just trying to catch up on some paperwork. We're also working on a VPSO housing, which we got 90-some thousand, which is just not quite enough, but it's enough to order material and, you know, get started on it. So, we also work with ANTHC quite a bit, Alaska Energy Authority for a power, you know, so there's different agencies out there that we could work with. And with the electrical, there's the Big M Electric we work with, David Atla, and on our solar panel project, we work with Edwin Byfeld. I know there was a guy earlier approached me, asked me about our solar panel project. So I told Dave, here's the guy here to talk to. So anybody want to talk about solar panels? And Dave is a real big help. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Wilmer. And Wilmer, if I could ask, I mean, one of the things that Thelma was saying just before she had to take a break for Senator Murkowski was the community meeting that you guys have. And it just strikes me as something that I know is hard to kind of let it get off track, but can you guys talk about how you let the community kind of guide the community plan and the strategy for grants that you guys want to go after?
Yeah, it's really important we have the community involved. And when we do a community plan, it's like most other tribes, it's a 5-year plan. Then we just go through our priorities, and the TCC staff comes out to Hughes, and we write everything down, kind of like a strategic plan. And then we go off that and we implement into our community plan. And so that's where we get our guidance from, is from the community.
Awesome. Well, thanks a bunch, Wilmer and Thelma. And we're going to, I don't know where the slides went, but we're going to kind of keep on moving and hand things over to Mitch to talk about kind of the housing process and the work that the TCC housing program has been able to do with a bunch of different villages they've worked with. Hey, Tyler, are those slides going to pop back? Sorry. Awesome. And our slides got a little bit interrupted, guys, but I can kind of cruise through a few others. And this, again, was one of the priorities for Hughes. This is a 80,000 gallon bulk tank farm and a gas station at the community that we were able to help the community with. And again, I'll just highlight, it's really that kind of think, plan, act. And the community of Hughes used to be fly-in only up until 2018. So if you wanted to get material in there, it was over $1 a pound via Everett's Air, and you had to be able to put it into DC-6. And so Matt Sweetser with Ruby Marine started going up to the community, and he told them, he said, in order for me to make this work, you guys need to have some tankage. I need to be transporting fuel up to Hughes. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep coming up because it just doesn't make economic sense for me. So the community realized it's a benefit for the community to have fuel prices go down by $1. And it's a huge benefit to the community to, instead of paying $1 a pound for freight, to pay 55 cents a pound for barged in freight. And so they looked at what would be in the best interest of the community, and they went after funding for a bulk tank farm, and we were able to help them with the design. And it received funding from a CDBG, which Thelma was able to write. And again, it was a great example of kind of pairing up TCC's resources on the design side and the City of Hughes and Hughes Tribal Council resources in the community. Because to go after a CDBG grant, you need to have all sorts of community meetings. You need to be able to check the box on a bunch of things that we just can't do from Fairbanks. And Thelma was fantastic at organizing all those different pieces from the community. Similarly, when they identified another goal for the community of Hughes, it was assisting with the reduction in diesel use. And that was a solar project that we helped with, and Wilmer had just mentioned that. And one of the big accomplishments wasn't just that it was a 120 kW solar project, but that it was we're going for a 20% reduction in their fuel use through the project. But a big accomplishment for us was the fact that we were able to install it with 100% local labor, because that's what keeps these projects active, and that's what keeps them successful. Tyler, am I doing something wrong? Technical difficulties. There we go. And that's the photo of the Hughes project, and then Edwin Byfeld, the local contractor from Huslia, who were able to get to assist with it. So I'm going to hand things over to Mitch Schufelt to touch base on some of the housing work that he's been doing. Mitch, it's been a little bit finicky. And then I should have said this before, guys, but I've got some questions at the end, so pay attention. I've got some gifts to give away if you get the questions right. You want to?
Okay. So it looks like a lot of our slides here are about Hughes. I first met Wilmer about 17 years ago when I was with IRHA, and I was just the young guy, the laborer on the crew. And yeah, he's a very knowledgeable guy. I call him whenever time I go to Hughes, and he's got always something good to say or more tricks of the trade to teach me. And I'm just impressed with all the money and that's coming in, these grants that they're writing. Just building up that community, keep it from dying out, because I'm seeing that a lot in a lot of the communities I travel to. So, and with this BI HIP program I mentioned earlier during my introduction, majority of the homes that I built through that program have been in Hughes, and Wilmer's the go-to guy to get that job done. This was one of the first houses right here that I've done in Hughes, and this is the transition time I took over this position to the head guy to oversee this. And so the first thing we have to do before we start a project is site control and securing land. Now, many people out there say, okay, I got land, but are you the sole owner, or is it passed down generation? So that's a divided interest. So let's just use an example in here. Grandpa had 10 acres. He passed it to his kids. They pass it, just gets willed down. And you got probably the majority of people here all owning that one piece of property. So that's where conflict comes into place, where I go and build this house. One of you is going to say, no, I don't agree to this. So land and site control. Here's an example in Hughes of overhead satellite map. I have to work with Realty all the time with these maps to see who's the owners, who owns this land. I got to go on Department of Natural Resources recorder site, talk with, again, Realty, help me if I'm wrong, confirm that this land is not owned by multiple people or a single person. And turns out this house that I built here through BIA back in 2018, we could look down here at lot 10 here. You know, you can see these boundary lines that I have to work within and not cross into someone else's property. And just turns out this individual here was a sole ownership of this property in town. And this is actually a native allotment for an elder, which was good that he did not will it down to his children. So this really helped on our project. So getting to the next problem is anything in the area that we need to clear out of the way in place of this new house. You can see here that there's an old shed here and there's a satellite dish, power. You got easements here with power lines, driveways, public roads, all that needs to be dead on whenever you put these homes in. So you can see here, working with Wilmer Realty, we were able to demolish this old shed here in place of a brand new home right behind the existing home. And getting to start these projects, you have a critical timeline you need to meet. You know, with rising lumber prices last year, we were paying almost triple of what it was costing the year before. Metal prices went up, plastics, all that is part of this house. You got copper wiring, you got plastics for your plumbing. Appliances have gone up, lead times to get cabinets in, flooring, all this. I mean, it's just crazy in the world nowadays how much back order it will take. I mean, I just ordered a fridge probably for one of my homes like 4 months ago. It still ain't here. Now, again, a rolling process of what we need to do. We need to pick out a plan, work with you, your designs. I'm not just going to pick a plan and say, oh, I'm going to build it this way. And it's like, wait, I don't like that layout. So if you're going to contract me to build your building, I need to know it's okay with you. I present multiple designs. Does this fit your need? I'm not going to spend your money until you tell me to. I work for you. It's your money. You tell me when and how to spend it. And once we get a plan in place, first comes the bidding cycle. Procurement, contracts, hiring, legal, HR, they all play a role in our design, in our process of construction. So using this example here, this is finding the right crew members. Like Dave said, you know, you got to have a good working relationship with your guys to get the job done successfully. Then next, like I said, order supplies, transporting to whether you're on the road system, the river system. Do I need to fly this stuff in on a charter? You know, every village is different. They're not all the same. Whether you're on the road system, again, in a river access only, it's challenging every village you go into. And I could say Hughes right now is maybe one of the most challenging villages to get materials into. Everett Air Cargo, they will not fly a full plane load in there. That it'd be half that plane load due to the runway distance that they need to stop. Barging, they won't go all the way up to Kyacook River if it's worth it. If it's small materials, they're not going to waste their time going up there. It's too much money and too much fuel just to go that small distance. So shopping around for the best prices is another key. I got quoted, I got to build 2 homes this year on the river, and I got a house package quote for this amount of dollars. And I said, no, that's ridiculous. I'll just take the extra time, do my own calling around, shopping, and I was able to bring that cost down by 30%. So those house packages are all paid for as of last week. I was just speaking to one of the vendors this morning about any final hardware that I need to buy. Every screw, every bolt, everything counts. Once you get it there, that one little part is what you need to keep going. So logistics wise is going to be another challenge this year. We just saw a $1 per gallon increase within the last week. And with all the COVID funds coming in all over, all this funding for everyone building houses, that's stacking up the loads there at the barge company. So there's materials sitting there from last year that need to go. I'm hoping my materials are going to get on that barge this summer to get these homes built. I don't want to be waiting until, you know, when it's winter months, fishing season, hunting season. That's all going to put us into the winter months, and this house will not get done this year. Again, organizing your workers. You know, we got to, I put out job applications, I get them coming in, but I talk to the chiefs or the council and I say, hey, you know these guys better than me. You know, I need to know who's the best workers. I don't want no conflict on the job, no arguing. I need to know if these are the best fit to get this job done. And that's the major key is like Dave said, you know, you got to work with the right people to get the job done right. Some of the roadblocks we have is also specialty trades is finding the contractors willing to go out during COVID, or if the tribe will allow outsiders to come in. You know, we're trying to secure the village of not bringing in outsiders, bringing in the virus to our, you know, getting everyone sick. So what we do, we just kind of take matters in our own hands. You see this slide here with the guy up there on the bucket hooking up power. That's me. I go into a lot of villages with villages that own their own power company, but they don't have their own linemen. They just know the generator work, how to man the generator house. But when it comes time to hook up power, they say, no, we got to call in linemen. Well, heck, I'll go up there and do it. And that's sure enough what I did here. This is for a house in Circle I did a couple months ago. And just so you know, those lines are hot right there that I'm working on. I did not turn off the transformer at all. I just climbed in that bucket, went up there and hooked it up. It took me probably about a good 20 minutes to get this house on. We didn't want generators running at 30 below, buying more fuel. So, you know, utilize your skills. I mean, look, that's me in the back of that trailer right there, hauling my own material. Why hire a truck driver when you got your own truck and trailer? Bring it to the barge, bring it. If you're on the road system, just take a day, load up a trailer, make some trips, save money on shipping. And I believe it's time to turn this over to Selena. We'll take questions in the end if you have any for me. My phone's already blown up with people wanting me to call them for construction. Just earlier from introducing myself, saying what I do, what I can provide. My phone got like 6 emails just like that. Can you call me after your presentation? We're watching you on convention. Thank you.
And yeah, guys, sorry, we had a little bit of a goof up with the PowerPoint. So it's actually, we're going to transition to Selena next to talk about project planning, which to go back to, you know, kind of bring it around to what Hughes did. Remember, Hughes said they just built a number of homes. Well, the reason they were able to build that many homes with the COVID funding is because they were prepared for it. So I'm really fond of this quote. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I think the community of Hughes did that really well because they put in a subdivision back in 2015, 2014. So they had house pads already. They worked with ANTHC to prep their water system, and they worked to size their generators up prior to getting this COVID money so that they were ready. And Thelma and Wilmer both talked about the planning aspect of this. And Selena is going to talk a little bit about the program that she runs and more opportunities for community plans.
Can you put the community planning slide on?
You know, we don't have the slide, Selena, in this slide deck, but I do have a PDF copy that I'll hand you. So I apologize, guys.
Oh, no. Okay. Okay. Like I said, my name is Selena Sam. I am from Tanana and Alatna. I've been in community planning for just a little bit over a year now. I help tribes write their 5-year community plans. How it works is that you can ask for us to travel out to your community to work on updating your 5-year plan. We split it out between 2 parts. One of it is holding the community plan meeting. We invite everyone to the community. You know, we want everyone to really be involved and voice their opinions on what they want to see within the next 5 years. The second part of it is distributing, collecting, and analyzing a community feedback survey. What we do is we have a basic, probably about 4 or 5 page survey we hand out to all community members. We take that and figure out what the community members want to see, and then we put that into the community plan. Our program has the village planning and development program. We offer 3 cycles. It's an opportunity to contract with your tribe to hire someone to write that community plan. that person is the community planning specialist. It's good for 400 hours and it's through a contract with TCC and your tribe. After the community plan is adopted, your tribe becomes eligible to hire a grant development specialist position. And that's also 400 hours. We have cycles. We have a fall cycle, summer cycle, and a spring cycle, all good for 400 hours. Just contact us if that sounds like something you're interested. There are currently maybe about 15 to 16 tribes with outdated plans. And part of the planning and development program is that we contract, we have five contracts with businesses to help with grant writing assistance. So I'm new to this, so just please contact me if your tribe wants us to travel out to update your community plan. Thanks.
Thanks, Selena. And say, can you, show of hands, if you guys know your community plan is updated, can you guys raise your hand, or if you've worked with Selena's program? Right on. So a lot of communities, I would say that's a lot of potential customers out there to work with. And I would just throw out there, I think, you know, it's challenging to spend the upfront time to really get all of your ducks in a row to be prepared for grant opportunities. But I know I can speak from experience that those plans are incredibly useful when a tribal council comes to you and say, hey, we want to do this. We want to go after this funding opportunity. We want to put in a broadband project or build a community hall or do some communication system. If we have the community plan and it's been vetted, that gets directly input into the grant application usually. And the reviewers look at all of that when they're kind of evaluating whether or not the community is ready for a project. So the work that Selena does in her program is really important. And most importantly, it's free to the tribes. And then Selena, can you touch base? Are you also managing the grant writing right now?
Yes, as of yesterday, I just started. Thanks.
And do you want to talk a little bit about what that process is like if a community's got a grant that they want to go after?
Yeah, so we have 5 contracts out with grant writers. Somebody just touched base on working with Jeff. He's on contract. If you have a specific project in mind, you can contact us. And then what I will ask of you is to put a funding toolkit together, and it kind of lays out the project that you want to pursue. You know, it goes over what you want, how much money that you'll be dealing with, and I believe we can take it from there. But yes, we do have grant writing assistance.
And so what Hughes has done is they've gone after and got a grant writer under contract independently. But what TCC has is an option for tribes. And I believe there's a funding toolkit and it has to have a council resolution come with it so that we can say, hey, we're not just dispatching a contractor willy-nilly to work with you. There's a resolution from the council that says, hey, we're committed to go after this project. Thanks a ton, Selena. And then, so we're gonna touch base right now on another topic that can be a little bit challenging because it's kind of getting into the weeds, but I know from my experience working with communities, it is just incredibly important to touch base on the procurement requirements, because that's something when you go after, and especially with all of the funding that our tribes are seeing available right now, it's almost overwhelming for a lot of communities. And making sure that everybody's financial house is in order and that we're not violating any procurement guidelines is a big priority, because if you get kind of slapped by the IRS or a federal agency, it makes it more challenging to go after future federal funding opportunities. So the work that Jen's program does, ensuring that tribes are following their own procurement guidelines and helping develop them, is just really important to making sure that our tribes can continue to go after these funding opportunities, especially as they get larger.
So in addition to having your financial policy, or maybe a part of your financial policy would be procurement standards or a procurement policy. And it is really important for you all to just take a look and be able to read that and see if that's still, that you're still following the same policies, that, because a lot of times these are pretty old. They could be 10 years old, 5 years old, and maybe things have changed and some things are different. My group can help you. We have some financial policy templates and some procurement policy templates that we can come out and we can work with the council and try to establish exactly how you do business, and then make sure that those policies have the federal financial requirements, but also have how you do business. So it'd be like a real working document for you. Right now, I was just going to talk about procurement requirements because a lot of things have kind of changed. When we all got the CARES funding, right when COVID hit, a lot of the purchases fell under your sole source procurement because it was a emergency. And so we didn't have to go through the bidding process for things. We didn't have to really run out and get a bunch of quotes. This was a emergency that was happening, so we could just go purchase stuff. We had to spend this money quickly. But now we have the American Rescue Plan funding. We have time to think and plan and then act. And it's going to be important for you to remember what these procurement standards that are all listed in the OMB uniform guidance are. So your general procurement standards, the tribe needs to have their own documented procurement policy. You need to avoid acquisition of unnecessary or duplicative items. You want to award contracts to responsible contractors. And it's very important to maintain records sufficient to detail the history of your procurement. So if you're, purchasing something where you need to get quotes, you want to make sure that you have those 3 quotes attached to your vendor invoice, the check that was paid, and into your vendor file. So when you get audited, you can pull it out and be like, we called around, this is the one we went with, and have all of your procurement back up there. So your methods of procurement, we've got micro purchases. That if you purchase, it's pretty much for supplies and services that do not exceed $10,000. You can just, you want to shop around for the best price, but you can just go ahead and purchase that without having any quotes. You do want to make sure you have all your source documents, your receipts, and all of that stuff. The next category is small purchase procedure. It would be for supplies and services that are up to $250,000, or we should say below $250,000, above $10,000, below $250,000. In that case, you need to get a minimum of 3 quotes. If you call around and 2 people you call don't have the product that you're looking for, only 1 does, well, that suffices for your quotes. Those, that kind of reverts you back to a sole source. We called these people, they don't have it, we need it right now. This people does, we can go with them. And then there's the sealed bids. If you're doing like a construction contract, you have a set price of what you're looking for. Then there's the whole procurement by sealed bids, which is advertising, a lot of that stuff. I think Dave can definitely touch more on that process and those pieces. If you get into that, there's a competitive proposal section. That's generally for engineering, where you can say engineering and design, where you don't necessarily have to go with the cheapest or the most affordable. You can go with the one that's got the most, what's the word I'm looking for? Value, yes. Thank you. And then the last one is what I've been touching base on, is the sole source, or the non-competitive proposals, which is when you need an item right away, if it's an emergency or during a public emergency, or after you've solicited a number of sources and competition is determined to be inadequate. Those are your basic methods of procurement. I do like to just kind of remind people, when you are contracting with somebody or subcontracting with someone, even if it's somebody locally, make sure you have a contract, even if it's just a letter stating what the person's going to be doing for you, how much you're going to pay them. In order to get reimbursed by federal funds, you just want to make sure you have that contract with the payment when that goes out. Another point is to make sure for your own tribe's workman's comp audit that happens yearly, that for every subcontractor, you have a W-9 and you have proof of their general liability insurance and workman's comp insurance. And then don't forget about the requirements for an audit. If you spend over $750,000 in federal funds, you'll need to be audited. You'll need to call around and follow your procurement policy in order to retain an audit firm. And again, I always suggest at least get 3 quotes from an audit firm of how much that will cost you. And if you have any questions or want to know if your policy is updated or if TCC does have some historical policies and procedures for tribes, and I can always look up and see if there's a procurement policy for your tribe there, or if you need our assistance in any way with that stuff, you can always give us a call. We're happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. And just another quick note on that federal audit. I would say that that's something to be particularly aware of, because what's happening now is that sometimes our tribes are getting more money than they've ever received before. And so whereas you may not have been required to do a federal audit in the past, with the amount of money coming down the pipe, you might have to do it in the future. And it's a big expense to prepare for, and it's a heck of an undertaking. And some of the larger grants that we're looking at, the Reconnect grant, for example, those actually, some of them require a federal audit or 2 years of a federal audit. So something to kind of keep into consideration as we're looking at opportunities and planning for the future. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jen, Selena, and Mitch, and a big thanks to Thelma and Wilmer.